For more videos, press the subscribe button and also turn on the bell notifications to receive the updates directly in your device. Hello everyone, I Vikas Nehra welcome you all to session number 65 of our ongoing RHCSA version 10 training. In this session, we will talk about SSH features and options in Linux. By the end of this session, you will be able to configure and enable SSH welcome banner, disable direct root login via SSH, and change the default SSH port for added security. So in this session, we are going to cover up total three things. The first is SSH welcome banner. Second is disable root login via SSH. And third is change default SSH port. So let's start the session with the first one, SSH welcome banner. How can you configure and enable the SSH welcome banner? That I'm going to show you. If you want to configure and enable the SSH welcome banner, open SSH server and client packages must be installed in your machine, and the SSHD service should be up and running fine. So in our case, we have already installed these packages and the SSHD service is already running and is enabled as well. After that, we can create a file in which we will mention the text that we want to display as a welcome banner if someone logs in our machine via SSH. So let's create a file in the /etc/ssh directory, and we can give it any name. Let's mention the name as sshd-banner. Here in this file, whatever we want to write, we can write which we want to display at the welcome screen if someone logs in our server via SSH. So let's mention a warning: authorized users only, all activities will be monitored and logged, disconnect immediately if you are not authorized. This text we want to print as a welcome banner, and it should be displayed during the SSH login. So we have created a file here in the /etc/ssh directory with the name as sshd welcome banner. After that, we will check the /etc/ssh/sshd_config file, which is the configuration file for the server, and we will look for the banner option there. So we can directly search banner by mentioning /, and here it will show you banner none. That means banner is not currently set there. So what we will do, we will uncomment this line, and after this banner text, we will mention the complete path or the absolute path of the banner file that we created in the previous step. Let's mention the path there and save the changes. After that, whenever you make any changes in the configuration file, you should always check whether the changes are correct or not, whether the syntax of the file is correct or not, and if there are some mistakes or not. How can you check that? You can execute the sshd-t command. If there are some errors in the file, then this command will show you those lines where you might have made the mistake. Okay, so you can verify the configuration file with the help of the sshd-t command. So there are no errors in our file. This command is not showing anything on the screen. So what we have done, we have created a file which contains the text that we want to display as a welcome banner, and we have enabled the welcome banner in the SSHD configuration file. Now, after making the changes in the configuration file, we should always restart the service so that these changes can apply there. Since we have made the changes in the configuration file of SSH, so we need to restart the SSHD service. So we can execute the systemctl restart command for the SSHD service. So that's it. Our welcome banner has been enabled, and now we can test it. Let me show you. Let me try to log in from my Windows CMD screen. This is the command line interface of my Windows machine, and here let me try to log in into the SSH server. SSH root @ and the IP address of my server machine, that is 192.168.229.132. Look at this. So it is showing the same welcome banner there while I'm trying to log in the server using the root user account. This is how we can set up the SSH welcome banner. Now, we will talk about disabling root login via SSH. Ideally, especially in production machines or in critical servers, we always disable root login via SSH because of security reasons. We never allow root user to log in directly through SSH because it would be very difficult to identify that who has actually logged in using the root user account. Always we prefer that we should log in as a normal user, and then if we need the root access, either we can use sudo or we can switch in the account of the root user, where the root user password is always kept in a vault, and we provide proper information there to retrieve the root password so that we can identify who actually tried to log in as the root user. So we should always disable the root login via SSH. That's why by default, whenever we do the installation of RHEL 9 or 10, it gives us the option to enable the root login. By default, that is disabled there. That is the reason. Because of the security reasons, it is recommended to disable the root login via SSH. So how can we do it? Let me show you. In this machine, the root login is enabled. I explicitly enabled it at the time of installation. Now let me show you how can we disable it. So we can again open the SSHD configuration file in VI editor. The location of this file is /etc/ssh and the file name is sshd_config. In this file, we will look for the line containing permit root login. This is the line. It is showing password prohibited password. So we can uncomment this line and we can write here no. If we want to allow the root user to log in via SSH, we can mention here yes. So let's mention no here and we can save the changes. After making the changes, we should always check the configuration file for errors by running the sshd-t command. In previous versions like RHEL 6, 7 and 8, this step was sufficient to allow or deny the root user to log in via SSH. But in RHEL 9 and 10, we need to check for the sshd_config.d directory as well, because there these machines have some additional configuration files which takes control over these settings. This is the location /etc/ssh/sshd_config.d. In this location, we have some additional configuration files. So in this location, we have a file permit_root_login.conf. So we have to make changes there in this file as well. We will open this file. Here, permit_root_login is enabled. We have to mention no here. Okay. This step is very important. If we will not mention no here, then this file will actually override the root login option which is there in the default configuration file for the SSH. Again, we will check the configuration file for errors. So everything looks fine. Now we can simply restart the SSH service. Systemctl restart SSHD. Now we will verify whether we can log in as a root user or not. I have shown you in the previous step that the root login was enabled earlier. Now let's try to log in as a root user again. So let me execute the SSH command for the same. And let me mention the same password for the root user. This time it will not allow me to log in. It is saying permission denied. So this is how we can disable the root login via SSH. So this machine is not allowing me to log in as the root user. Can I log in as a normal user? Let me try to log in as Vikas Nehra. Welcome banner is showing up there and I'm allowed to log in as a root user. After that, I can use sudo su to go in the root user account, or I can simply do su- if I know the root password. Okay, so this is how I can disable the root user login via SSH. Now, the third topic. How to change the default SSH port. Changing default SSH port is sometimes necessary for server hardening, or if we want to enhance the security of our machine, because everybody knows that by default SSH uses port number 22. So if we change the port, it would be very difficult for someone to know which SSH port our machine is currently using. So we can assign some other port other than 22. Ideally, we should always pick a port between 1024 to 65535, because from 0 to 1023 these ports are already reserved for the known services. These ports are known as the well-known ports because they are generally used by other services. So we should always pick a port between 1024 to 65535. Let's suppose we want to use port number 2222 as the default port for SSH in our case. How will we do it? Let me show you. So we will again open the sshd_config file in VI editor, and here in this file we will search for port. Can we see it? Yes, it's there. Here it is. This option is currently disabled, but it is hard coded. Even if this option is commented in the configuration file, by default SSH will use port number 22 until or unless we explicitly define it here in the configuration file. So let's uncomment this line and let's mention the port number as 2222. After that, we will save the file. Let's verify again. So we can simply grep this line there by using the cat command. So it is showing the port number as 2222. If you change the port, you have to make sure that this port is defined there in SE Linux as well. And we need to execute the SE manage command for the same. If you have no idea about SE Linux and if you don't know the command to allow the port there in SE Linux, it's better to check the configuration file. Just above this port line, it shows the command that we can use to define the port for SSH in SE Linux. So this command we need to execute. I already know the command to define the port, so I'm not going to copy it. Okay. Since we have made the changes there in the sshd_config file, so we will check whether the file is okay or not. So we will check the file for errors by running the sshd-t command. There are no issues with the configuration file. After that, we have to make sure that the machine is allowing the traffic from port number 2222. By default, SSH service is added in the firewall. That means our machine is allowing the traffic which is coming from port number 22. Look at this. SSH service is already added there. This is of no use for us because we have already changed the SSH port. So let's allow the traffic from port number 2222. So we will add the port number 2222 in the firewall settings by running the firewall -cmd -permanent -add -port command. Let's define the port number 2222/TCP, and if we want, we can define the zone as well. Zone is equal to public. By default, we are using the public zone. Now we need to reload the firewall configuration so that these changes can apply. Let's verify the changes. Now we have port number 2222 showing up there in the port section of the firewall settings. That means our machine is now allowing the traffic from port number 2222. We have enabled the port in the firewall. We have to enable the port in the SE Linux as well. To add port 2222 in SE Linux policies, we need to execute the SE manage command. SE manage. I will explain all these commands when I'll teach you SE Linux, so you don't need to worry about the command. SE manage port -a we are using to add or allow the port. -t is for the type. SSH port -p is for the port. Then we can write TCP or UDP and the port number. So this command will add port number 2222 in the SE Linux policies so that SE Linux will not block the traffic coming from port number 2222. Okay. If you want to check it, we can execute SE manage list command. There are a lot of commands which we can use. We will go in details in the upcoming sessions. Or if you want, you can just read the manual of SE manage. This is the SE Linux policy management tool that we can use to manage the SE Linux policies. Look at this. We can grab SSH there. So for SSH, we are using port 2222 and 22 in SE Linux policies. We have defined it there. Since we have made the changes there in the SSH configuration file, so we need to restart the SSH service. Systemctl restart SSHD, and we are done. We can easily log in from a remote machine by using port number 2222. But by default, port number 22 will not work. Let me show you. Suppose I simply execute SSH command to log in this machine. It will say connection refused because currently we are not using port number 22 for SSH. We are using some other port. So how can we log in? In order to log in, we must know the port number. Only then we can log in. So it is again an added layer of security that we can use by changing the SSH port. So how can we log in into the machine having a different SSH port other than the default one? We will write SSH-P for the port number. Then we can mention the port number, that is 2222. After that, we can mention the name of the user. And after that, we can mention the IP address or the host name of the machine. And this is how we can access the machine via SSH. One safety tip for you. Do not close your current SSH session. Our current SSH session, which I am showing you here on the MOBA extern, this session is still using port number 22. But the new connections will be allowed through port number 2222 only. Do not close your current SSH session until you confirm the new port works. Otherwise, you could lock yourself out there. So always log out from the existing session once you confirm that the new port is working. Okay. So what have you learned so far in this session? Now you understand how to enable the SSH welcome banner. Now you know how to enable or disable the root login via SSH. And you also know how to change the SSH port. That's it from my side for this session. In the next session, we will talk about some advanced options like how can we allow or deny a user or groups to log in via SSH in our machine. So that's it from my side. If you have any questions, you can ask me now.